Hey, church, today is February 26th. That means we're in Acts 26, and it starts off leaving where we left off yesterday. And now Paul is in front of King Agrippa. Now, remember, he was in jail, and Festus took over, and so he wanted to go to the emperor and be seen at the Supreme Court there. And so King Agrippa comes by, and so King Agrippa said that he'll hear him. So Paul's in front of King Agrippa, and basically at the very beginning of the chapter, King Agrippa tells him, just go ahead and talk, say whatever you want to say. This is not really a real trial. It's just kind of King Agrippa hearing what's going on and trying to help out Festus. And so it starts off with Paul sucking up a little bit to King Agrippa, talking about how well he knows all the Jewish customs and all the Jewish entities, and how he'd be such a great guy to hear what's going on. And Paul basically starts out with, hey, what we call Acts chapter 9, but starts out with his conversion. Tells him he was on a road to Damascus, and then he saw a bright light, heard Jesus, and tells him the whole story that we read about 2 weeks ago in Acts chapter 9. And he finishes up with that, and after he tells the whole story, he basically says, well, this is why all the Jews are following me, and this is why they had me arrested. It's not because I did anything bad. It's because that now I'm talking about Jesus, and I'm going around and telling everybody that this Jesus is the man who all the Jews that we've been talking about and been training and reading about our whole life. This man Jesus is the Messiah. It's the guy who the prophets in the Old Testament leads to. And at this point, we see that Festus basically tells him that he's crazy. He's just like, you've studied so much, now you're starting to mix everything. And Paul basically says, I'm not crazy. And then he asks King Agrippa, really, if he wants to become a Christian. And what's really neat about it is King Agrippa basically kind of says, wait a minute, what? What's going on? You want me to believe in this Jesus in this very short time that you told me about him? And Paul says, well, really, I hope that everybody becomes a Christian. Everybody that's in here, from the smallest to the greatest, I hope that everybody becomes just like me, becomes a Christian. And then he adds a little bit of humor and he says, well, except for the chains that I'm wearing now, which was just kind of funny when you read this. And we see at the very end, it says that that King Agrippa heard enough. And when he leaves, he tells Festus, the governor there, he says, if it wasn't for Paul asking to see the emperor, that they could let him go. There was no charges of what Paul has done. There's no law that he's been broken. But because Paul is asked to be seen by the emperor's court, that he has to go there. Okay, that was kind of like a trump card that he laid out for Festus, and now because he laid it out, he has to go there. And so when you read this, it's kind of like, oh man, he could got out if he wouldn't have asked for that. But we'll see what God's going to do with that in another day or so. So when we read this, what really kind of stuck out at me was it was everybody in Paul's past before he was a Christian that's bringing him down. And now that he's a Christian, now that he's going around spreading the gospel, telling everybody that's what the Jewish faith was really pointing to, it seems like his past is coming back to pull him down. And that's so true about us Christians. When we become Christians, our past always comes back to bring us down. But we can see that Paul's not letting that happen, and neither should we. He's moving forward. He's moving on with the cause for Christ. Today's prayer focus is for our church to move outside the walls of our community. Of course, every church is inside of the church. We meet on Sundays and Wednesdays, and a lot of that is great. We're training, we're worshiping. But be praying for events that God will open up and doors that God will open up that we can get outside of our building to reach those in our community that is truly hurting, that truly need to hear the gospel. Be praying for leaders in ministries, not leaders that we have now. You do need to pray for those. Be praying for new leaders. People that will step up and say, you know what, I have an idea how we can reach out to our community. And they'll take charge of that and they'll move on. Also be praying for certain events in which we can impact our community. We have great events coming up. We have Kite Day. We have the college ministry growing up. We have Springapalooza. We'll have the fall festival. We have these events that we always do, but be praying for new events that will get us outside of our comfort zone, get us outside of the wall, and reach people for Christ. That shows people that we know who Jesus is and we're not afraid to share him to our community. Guys, what have we got? We got 2 more days, 3 more days. So, man, hang in there. This has been such a blessing, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.